This is the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition. Coming up.
You can imagine a cone that's cinnamon, filo pastry filled with cream, and they top it with almonds.
So if you have the opportunity to open in Thessaloniki and succeed, you are ready to every city in the world.
One of the prisoners got his freedom back by painting the tower white, and many of the visitors are disappointed it's not white.
You can drink all of them and you can understand why we are so happy, especially during winter.
So sit back and enjoy the trip with Mark Gordon and David Harris.
Hello again, David.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
And good night.
Thank you for joining us on the Jerusalem Post podcast.
5 minutes in Greece and look what happens.
I'm happy. I'm away again. Sorry, to my wife, I'm missing you dearly, but I am happy to be travelling because we are a travel podcast.
I think my wife is happy that I'm travelling.
I don't know, I never ask. I just run. Anyway, let's not go there.
What we're actually here to talk about is Thessaloniki, because that's where we are.
I have to admit, this is one of the places that I didn't know a great deal about before we came. And as we're about to start our trip, I still don't know a lot about it.
So we've covered the Jewish story in a previous pod. Incredible, fascinating, riveting. If you're Jewish or just interested in Jewish history, it is one of the greatest stories you will ever hear about a Jewish city. And when I say Jewish city, I use the term advisedly. And from everything I've read on Google What's It thus far, it would appear that the generic story of this city is equally mysterious and fascinating.
Apparently so, but I didn't get past the food and the drink and the markets. So I'm quite looking forward to that. I believe there's not just olive oil, but ouzo and raki and pastries and maybe something a little bit not Greek coming up.
That gives you a taste, if you'll forgive the pun. But Mark, what about a quiz question?
We should, but I think you wrote one down because I was still on the raki. And
we hadn't even got here yet. Okay, so it's my turn. Normally Mark does this, it's his thing, so I will try to do it in the best possible Mark way. The city was founded in honour of Alexander the Great's half-sister. She's the sort of Thessa bit in Thessaloniki. The Niki bit is a bit like Nike. Well, they're the same word, but what does Nike mean?
There are other brands like Adidas also available, but we'll give you the answer at the end of the podcast. Now cue some lovely bouzouki music, or maybe just our regular music.
Discover the future with Inside Israeli Innovation. I'm Eve Young from the Jerusalem Post, bringing you exclusive insights from Israel's top innovators. Each week, we dive into the latest trends in tech, business, and beyond with interviews from the brightest minds in the industry. Whether it's cutting-edge startups or revolutionary tech breakthroughs, Inside Israeli Innovation is your front row seat to the startup nation. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and stay ahead of the curve. Inside Israeli Innovation, where innovation meets inspiration.
Ahoy!
The hearties. How do you say that in Greek?
I don't know. I can't say anything in Greek. I'm really embarrassed. I don't even know how to say hello.
Let's find out. How do you say hello in Greek?
Yasu, or simply ya.
Did you get that?
Yow.
Okay, that's a good starting point. We just heard a voice, so it's time for an introduction. Can you tell listeners who you are?
My name is Lina and I work for Thessaloniki Tourism Organization, and I'm here with you for a short night walk in the center of Thessaloniki, in the waterfront of Thessaloniki actually.
You're here with us whether you wanted to be or not. We've walked along the promenade. We've gone to one end to Aristotle Square, and we've just come to the other end of the promenade and the White Tower.
We're going to learn a lot about these things over the next day or two with our guide, but we thought it would be a nice opportunity to learn a little bit about what it's like to live in this city, which right now, and we're on the cusp of October, is warm, it's vibrant, there are people here from all over the world, there are restaurants, there are cars non-stop, as Mark mentioned, the Ahoy there are two pirate ships just leaving dock.
There's 3. You've obviously already started drinking on the pirate ship because there's a third one just going by.
What's it like to live in this city, which we're obviously covering as tourist journalists, but there's obviously the people who, after the tourists go away, spend the rest of their life here?
It is actually very nice to live in Thessaloniki because you enjoy many months of warm weather and the winters are mild, I'd say. It's a very easy city to walk because it's about 5 or 10 or 15 minutes to go from the one tip of the Thessaloniki center to the other. And it has many options. And as long as there are students here, it is a very vibrant community with many alternatives in terms of food, entertainment, going out, and it has a very rich historic background, of course.
I can smell chestnuts at the moment. I can smell sweet corn cooking. I can smell the sea air. It reminds me a little bit of my childhood and going to the seaside in England. Would you say the vibe here is very much like a European beach resort, or does it feel more like a city centre here?
I would consider it as a city getaway because everything you can see or do in Thessaloniki, you might spend 2, 3 or 4 days and you can see the whole thing. But if you want to spend more days, about 1 or 2 days extra, you would have the chance to see other regions around Thessaloniki that are very beautiful. They have beautiful nature. Basically, I would consider it as a city getaway.
We were very fortunate as the sun was setting and the scene was just stunning, the colours, the oranges and the pinks. But we could see at a distance of about 60 miles or 100 kilometres, Mount Olympus. It was that crisp, it was that clear. What about the areas around the city? You've got nature reserves and forests. Do you get out there at all?
Around Thessaloniki, there are many people that if they spend some days in Thessaloniki, they decide to make a short trip in Riviera. Others go to Pella. Some people, if it's summer, they definitely visit Chalkidiki. Let's say that most of the regions around Thessaloniki have a similar weather, but it has beautiful forests around, especially Mount Olympus, you mentioned before. It has beautiful forests, but it also combines the sea part. So you can combine both of those, enjoy a short trip in the mountains, and then have a swim in the sea during the summer season. And I think this is really important.
David and I are getting hungry. If I think of Greek food, I think of moussaka, lamb and potatoes, and I think of ouzo, an aniseed spirit that I really don't like.
The Eastern Mediterranean, it's a real problem because you get from Arak in Israel and all the other
Raki
names.
in Turkey,
Yeah.
aniseed spirit. What is there that's unique to Thessaloniki that's nice to eat, that's sweet, that's tasty?
First, let me explain that Thessaloniki is recognized as a food capital by UNESCO. So it has some must-try foods. These are kuluri. Imagine something like a bagel with sesame. After that, we do have buratsa. Buratsa is a pastry. It's actually a sweet or salted pastry that is filled with cream or cheese, and there are many other variations. And we do have another sweet treat that started from Thessaloniki, and it's called trigono. You can imagine a cone that's cinnamon and also filo pastry filled with cream. Very tasty, and they top it with almonds.
The diet starts after we leave Thessaloniki.
This is Mark Gordon from the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
A jolly good morning.
Very good. How was breakfast?
Yes, we heard about it and we'll find out probably in a moment the name because we need a reminder. But it sounds like burekas and it's filled with cream.
I had mine filled with spinach.
Very, very good indeed. Why don't we find out a little bit about our guide for the day?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Zina. I'm a guide. based in Thessaloniki, traveling all around the country.
We've taken a short stroll from our lovely hotel, the Tate Hotel. We are 5 minutes walk away, and we've come to what appears on TripAdvisor and every other guide as the first thing to go and see in Thessaloniki. What is it, and can you tell us the history?
A little bit about the White Tower. It's the most recognizable building of Thessaloniki. Whenever someone sees a picture of the tower, of the White Tower, he knows that this is based and located in Thessaloniki. It used to be a part of the walls of the city, one of the many towers which once were built around the walls which defended Thessaloniki, used later on during the Ottoman period as a prison under the name of the Red Tower, and then at the end of the 1800s, after the prison was moved in the north of the city, became one of the monuments of Thessaloniki shortly after the city was liberated, the northern part of what we call Greece today. For a period of time it served as the Museum of Byzantine Culture. Since mid or second half of the 90s in Thessaloniki, there is a lovely museum introducing the guest of the history of the tower, and through this we can see the history of the city itself.
Why is it called the White Tower if it's not white?
Sometime at the end of the 19th century, when the prison was moved to the new one in the north of the city, one of the prisoners got his freedom back by painting the tower white. And many of the visitors are disappointed it's not white. But the perspective of the archaeologists is that if they paint the tower white, it would be an old building with a new fresh paint. So from time to time they remove the dirt, but according to them, the tower will not be painted white again.
When we met you at the hotel, you said, how shall we spend the day? You wanted to know what we were interested in. And then you said, maybe we should start at the top and work our way down. Perhaps this is a good time to explain a little bit of the topography and how that affects tourists when they come to this city.
In general, the city center is very accessible. Thessaloniki is a flat city. It's very easy to orientate for a tourist, for someone who's been here for the first time to orient himself, because all streets lead to the sea and it's fairly flat. But for those who want to do a little bit of walking, and I'm talking about reasonable walking, nothing steep, nothing difficult, if you take a taxi or even a public bus and start from the upper city, you can stroll down, you can walk downwards, and on the way you have the opportunity to see monuments the way the city used to be, because off-center you get to see more the vibe of the city in earlier decades, and of course see, breathe, hear, smell the city itself.
The chairs here are quite funky. They're tartan, and embroidered on the back are some pictures of foxes with monocles.
We've opened a fine rosé from the Pédoc region of southeastern France.
To stand in front of the Birth of Venus by Botticelli and just take it in.
Turning their backs on these magnificent architectural wonders, and all they want to do is have that Instagram moment.
I listened to the guide for 2 minutes while I was on Wikipedia.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and David Harris.
Peacocks, David. We're standing by peacocks in a cage near a church.
On top of a huge hill with the most incredible panoramic vista, and if you're here on a good day, you get to see Mount Olympus.
We've had a very interesting hour since we left the White Tower. We've seen city walls, we've seen evil eyes, we've seen a baptism. It's really, really interesting and different here.
Clearly, and part of our conversation with Zina has focused on religion and the differences and the fact that there are so many people who are traditional here, and that for those who want to maybe break out and maybe bring in a more modern version of Christianity, that it's actually quite difficult because it's a traditional place. And yet, on the other hand, if you go down the hill where we'll end up later on, you see a busy, bustling town with probably a lot of people who don't necessarily go to church, don't necessarily believe.
Let's break this down a little and ask Zina to explain what we're waffling on about. Let's start with the city walls. Can you tell us about the city walls, how big they are, and when they were built?
The city was built at the end of the 4th, 316, 315. Cassander, the son-in-law, Philip, built the city and named it after his wife's name, Thessaloniki. And after the city was established, it started being fortified to be protected from invasions. So little by little the walls were formed. They formed more or less a square, and over the centuries they were restored, they were enlarged, they were damaged, and reached their maximum length sometime around the 11th century, when they became 5 miles long or 8 kilometers long. And now we have half of it, most of them restored, of course, and we get to see the size, the shape of the walls, and I have to say they are preserved in a pretty good condition, one of the major attractions and also a UNESCO monument in Thessaloniki.
Can you walk on the walls?
Well, if you're young and rebellious, if you're stable, if you have, yes, you can do it. You can walk. Other than that, it is not permitted. But I have seen youngsters walking on the walls.
Ευχαριστώ.
Παρακαλώ.
See, I've now got 3 words of Greek. We left the walls and we walked down, and we're in this wonderful complex. There's a church at the centre of it, clearly, because there was a baptism going on. What is this, and what goes on here today?
This is a monastery of the end of the Byzantine period, middle of the 14th century AD, the Vlatadon monastery, founded by 2 brothers, the Rothos and Marcos Vlatis, Vlatades, family name. One of them was a bishop of Thessaloniki, a monastery which existed until the beginning of the 20th century, when the city was liberated, and then things were freer. Monastic life wasn't that attractive. Little by little the monastery descended, but now it does offer the opportunity to those who want to become Orthodox priests to study in Thessaloniki in the School of Theology and offer them free accommodation, along with wonderful workshops which restore and clean to preserve scrolls and inscriptions going back to the Byzantine or post-Byzantine periods, made of parchment or paper, and digitalize them in order to last forever. One of the most interesting things about the church is on the side of the church this reminder of the people of when Easter is going to be next year, and the year after, and the year after that, in order to arrange their transportation, since back in 1401 people couldn't travel the way, couldn't move the way we can, and when they wanted to spend this holiday with their loved ones, they needed to know when time next year Easter was going to be celebrated.
Mentioned a few interesting words. One's Byzantine, one is occupation, one is liberation. Without getting into too much of the politics, give us a quick understanding of what you mean by that.
What we call Greece today, but back then there wasn't any sense of a country. It was a compilation of people speaking the same language, using the same alphabet, believing in the same religion, and most of them inhabiting the same area, who identified themselves as Greeks. So the Greeks were living here, and the people of Israel lived there, and the English and the Germans further north. So this huge Roman Empire, which was created in the middle of the 2nd century BC, sometime later on, and this was only inevitable because it was too big, was cut into 2 major pieces, the East and the West. And Greece was a part of the Eastern Roman Empire, which was occupied by the Ottomans when officially the capital city of this empire, Constantinople, back then modern day Istanbul, was occupied in 1451 and remained under this occupation, and I'm referred to it as an occupation in terms of religion first of all, and education, if you want, on land, until 1912. The last part of Greece which was liberated was this part around Thessaloniki, and further east a few years later in 1920. So we are talking about an occupation of 5 centuries in the north. The south of Greece is a different case. It was liberated a century earlier.
Thessaloniki Fact File. The main airport, Thessaloniki, Macedonia, is accessible from most European cities via Aegean Airlines and Ryanair. Flights are also available from major airlines such as British Airways, Air France, Lufthansa, Swissair and LOT. Direct flights to Thessaloniki from Tel Aviv are available with El Al, Sundar and Aegean.
Getting from the airport to the city centre takes 20 to 40 minutes by car. Taxis are available at the terminal. There is a bus service between the airport and the city centre, with connections to the Central Railway Station and the Macedonia Regional Coach Terminal. Tickets can be purchased from the bus driver and cost around $2. We stayed at the Tate Hotel, a 2-minute walk from the sea. 5-star hotels in the city include the Electra Palace, Mediterranean Palace and Moldee Hotel. The Hyatt Regency, which houses the largest casino in the Balkans, is closer to the airport. $100 will buy you 91 euros as of October 2024. Thessaloniki has a mild, moderate climate with a significant amount of rainfall during the year. The highest average temperature is 26 degrees Celsius, 79 degrees Fahrenheit, but can reach maximums of 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit. January has the lowest average temperature of the year at 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Thessaloniki cuisine is Greek with elements of Eastern flavours remaining from the Ottoman Empire. The two signature foods are bougatsa, a sweet or savoury breakfast phyllo pastry, and koulouri, circular breads covered in sesame. Thessaloniki is also a coffee hotspot and the birthplace of frappe coffee. We ate at Moldee, next to the Tate Hotel and the Estrella Brunch restaurant. Every type of restaurant is available, from fine dining to pizza and burgers. Tuck in. Kosher food is available from the restaurant at the Astoria Hotel next to Bet Chabad.
After a long walk through Thessaloniki, I say a long walk, it was probably only about an hour's walking and a lot of standing around. We've come here for our lunch, a late lunch, and we are in a restaurant called Estrella World Street Food. And we're very lucky to be joined by the owner of the restaurant. Can you introduce yourself to us?
Hello, my name is Kostas Kapetanakis. I'm the founder and the owner of Estrella Restaurants.
A beautiful plate of dessert has just been placed in front of us. What is this?
This is our famous sweet that we call bougatsan. We combine the traditional cream of bougatsa of Thessaloniki, that is a semolina cream. We serve it warm. We combine it. We change the recipe from the phyllo pastry to a croissant. We combine the croissant with the bougatsa cream and we invented the bougatsan. They write about it in the international media like New York Times, Guardian, Saveur.
I can see another dessert coming here. It's very bright, it's very red. And the restaurant itself is very bright. There's pinks, there's blues. It feels very relaxed here. What is the concept of Estrella World Street Food?
I just want to say before you answer, that piece of dessert was just put in front of us. Oh my goodness, it's pink pancakes.
We have the opportunity to make a restaurant that is colorful. Maybe it is we are an Instagram restaurant. We love the colors because we are a very colorful city as Thessaloniki is.
Let's just go back 15 years. The country hits economic crisis yet again.
As always.
Prices go up, salaries go down, and 11 years ago, in the midst of all of this, you decide you're going to open a restaurant when many other restaurants are going out of business. Did people around you say you're crazy?
Yes, but maybe it was something like an opportunity for us because we are almost lost our jobs because they cut our salary. We decided with my family, with my wife and my brother, to have the opportunity to open a new restaurant with a new concept, that it was an all-day breakfast and brunch concept, like Estrella.
Why did you start in Thessaloniki and how have you expanded the chain?
Thessaloniki is a difficult market, so if you have the opportunity to open in Thessaloniki and succeed, you are ready to every city in the world. Thessaloniki is a place not to go on a diet because we have very good restaurant scene. We have 10 restaurants in Greece, Cyprus and Portugal, and we have some plans from the Middle East, maybe some countries nearby like Bulgaria.
Talk us through what people are going to taste when they come here, because you say brunch, but it is brunch with a twist.
We have sweets, plates with eggs, a variety of street food. options. And of course, we are open from 8 o'clock in the morning until 11 in the night. We don't change the menu. It's the same from 8 o'clock in the morning until 11 in the night. Because if you come here in the night, you see young people to take pancakes, coffee and beer and to take his time here.
Mark, I was just thinking to myself, so often, especially back in Israel, a restaurant will serve a breakfast, and Israeli breakfasts are really famous. They're very nice, they're very good, but they'll serve them until 11 o'clock, until 12 o'clock, and then you've got to go to the next menu.
I'm also thinking with breakfast, you wouldn't have wine, you'd get your orange juice and tea and coffee. Do you have a wine menu? Do you sell alcohol?
We have a wine menu and we support local wineries because we have a lot of good local wineries. And of course we are in the same philosophy that we want to produce and to serve natural wines.
Can you tell us how people can find out where the locations are for Estrella?
Estrella with a 2L.gr.
There you go, Estrella with 2Ls.gr. Costas, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you so much.
hospitality.
Happy to have you here. Please come again in any time.
We look forward.
See you tonight.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
To talk the latest news in Israel, the Jewish world, and everything in between.
This is the J-Post Podcast. I'm Tamar Uriel-Beery, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Tzvika Klein, Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Sarah Ben-Nun, Night Editor at the Jerusalem Post. Join us as we bring some of the most impactful voices to bring you into what it means to be Jewish, to be Israeli today.
Every week, we bring you with us into the newsroom in every sense.
Stop being so dramatic. This is just our coffee break.
You can find us every Thursday on jpost.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll see you there.
Yalla, bye.
We've now come really down into the heart of the city, and this is the sort of place that tourists may not find, even though it is 50 yards, 50 metres or so off the tourist route. We've come into a market and we've met Alexandra. Alexandra, tell us a little bit about the market.
This is a historical market. This is a really traditional market. You can find here shops since 1920. It has a historical interest. You can find plenty of food, of clothes, of all the culinary, tradition of Greece and Thessaloniki, olives, olive oil, fishes, meat, fruits, vegetables, and all kind of clothes or souvenirs.
So are we drinking yet? That's why I've come.
Tell us a little bit about your store.
My store is based on the olive experience and the olive oil experience, so you can taste any variety of olives that you can find in Greece, any variety of olive oil that you can find in Greece. It's my passion. I love it, and if you visit Thessaloniki, please come to see us because it's really, really good experience to walk all around the Kapani market.
In a minute, we'll ask you the name of the store, the name of the market. Did you grow up in Thessaloniki, or did you grow up on a farm where there were olives?
No, I was grew up in Thessaloniki. I was born in Thessaloniki and I grew up in Thessaloniki.
But it's not just olive oil, is it? There are olives there are chilies, and there are two strange urns. I'm not going to do my Greek urn joke.
Vats with a tap at the bottom. What are they?
Thessaloniki doesn't produce any products apart from, we have wineries. So you can find Tsipuro wines. We have Tsipuro, which is a one-time boil. You can find Raki, which is 2 times boil. So you can drink all of them and you can understand why we are so happy, especially during winter. We pair it with salty vegetables, with olives. And this is our main food during winter, especially, Saturdays in the Kapani market, you can find all people eating.
If you could pour for us a little bit of each and we'll both taste a little bit, that would be great.
The store is called Mediterranean Gold. The website is mediterraneangold.gr. Alexandra M. Papadiamantaki.
Well done.
Is about to serve us. Is this raki or is it?
This is Tsipuro without anise. You can find also Tsipuro with anise, which is a little bit like ouzo but more strong. So Tsipuro without anise.
Okay, you go first because I'm holding the microphone.
I always prefer it without anise.
Yes, I'm also a without anise person.
Without anise, it's most characteristic. This is a pure one.
This is like a more traditional vodka, beiju, just an alcoholic drink without the overpowering taste of aniseed. I like this. I could drink lots of it.
Here's a joke for our Chinese listeners. It's compact and beiju.
Oh dear.
How many?
40.
40% proof. Here we go. It is the traditional David cough at this point.
You didn't hear the glasses clink because they're plastic. Oh!
Raki with honey, so you can combine raki with something more calm, more sweet. And I think it's better to have it right now after the tzipuro, okay, to calm your stomach a little bit. Perfect.
Okay, we're getting raki with honey. Meanwhile, there is somebody who's actually seriously going about their shopping here, has picked up, how do you call those packs?
Vacuum pack.
Vacuum pack of black olives?
Could be Kalamata. They're like a dark green.
No, hang on a minute. Kalamata means something in Greece, doesn't it?
That's calamari.
Kalamazoo?
Oh, I've forgotten.
Karl Marx.
One glass of...
You can't remember the name of this either. No, what was it called?
Calamari?
Yes, calamari. Which meant?
Good morning.
Oh, there you go.
Calimera.
Calimera, there you go. And what was good afternoon? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Oh, God.
Okay, you're listening to Learning Greek with Mark and David.
Yasu.
We're waiting while Alexandra serves other people who are actually having to pay for their things, as opposed to us who scrounge a couple of free drinks in the middle of the day.
It's much more calm, I promise.
Now we've got a completely different colour. I'm going to go first this time. So this is raki with honey. Oh, this is very gentle.
Yasu.
Yasu.
Anyway, you're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hi, this is David Harris from the Jerusalem Post podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com. So often in the monotheistic faiths, the selection of the location for a church, a mosque, a synagogue relates somehow to a historic event, and sometimes it's just a case of a modern municipal planning issue. We've come to one of the oldest churches anywhere in a magnificent state. Of course, the way we see it today is not necessarily how it was when it was built many, many centuries ago. Can you explain to us where we are and a little bit about the history of this basilica?
It's the Basilica of Saint Demetrius, the patron saint of Thessaloniki, one of the local saints, an officer of the army who was turned into Christianity and eventually was executed by the Roman soldiers. So it's a church which was built around 400, a church which served as one of the biggest churches of Thessaloniki until the Ottoman period, and then it was turned into a mosque and back into a church after the liberation. What's the gem of this church is hidden under the altar of the church, one of the earliest baths of the city, and then the prison of the saint, and this is why the location was selected for the church to be built, and then it was turned into a place of pilgrimage, a storehouse during the Ottoman period, and a museum today, this journey of the 16th centuries of this place.
We're upstairs in the church. I'm looking around. It looks in fabulous condition. I know there was a fire here around 100 years ago. The roof specifically looks magnificent. Was it rebuilt?
Not only the roof was rebuilt, but certain parts of the walls needed to be rebuilt, and the chairs were added because they were burned. They did something very clever here. Instead of building the roof of wood as they were supposed to, they replaced it with cement and painted this way to give a wooden imitation for the protection of the church from another possible fire, something that can very easily happen in a Greek Orthodox church full of candles. So what you see up there is cement and paint in this way to give this wooden imitation.
Demetrios not only is the name of the church, it's also a very common name in Greece for men. Who was he?
Well, he was a soldier. He was born here in Thessaloniki in the last quarter of the 3rd century AD. When he changed his religion, he was persecuted and eventually executed in 304. Demetrius is a very common name in Thessaloniki. Everywhere in Greece, more common in Thessaloniki.
It's believed he was executed underneath where the church is built. What was there when he was executed, and how far back does the basement of this building, the crypt of this building, go?
Well, originally it was built at the end of the 4th century BC. When the city was built, because of the port, immediately it was turned into a center. And this is why the population was increased. They needed public baths. One of those public baths was here. So we're talking about the end of the 4th century BC. And so the journey of this place started as a public bath and then turned into a prison. It was the place where the saint was executed there, imprisoned and executed.
Looking at this building from the outside, if you didn't know that it was a church and you're coming from the west, you wouldn't think that it was a church.
Like a lot of the churches we've seen around here and the buildings we've seen around here, it has a dome on the top, or it had two domes on the top. So it doesn't, like you say, look like the traditional European church.
I guess, again, if you're thinking about down the road in Istanbul, one of the classic examples of the Hagia Sophia, and indeed if you go down into Andalusia in the southern parts of Spain, there were, I guess you could say they were multi-purpose depending on who was occupying at a given time, whether a building was going to be a mosque or a church, but they were very often converted one into another.
If you've listened to our previous episode about Thessaloniki, you'll have learnt about the Jewish history of Thessaloniki. As we walked round downstairs underneath the church, there were a couple of paving stones that were made from Jewish graves. When were they put into this church?
Well, the church was damaged by the big fire of 1917. And it was given back to the inhabitants of these people in 1948, given the fact that the Jewish cemetery was destroyed during the Second World War. So those pieces of plaques were put there shortly after they were destroyed. They were taken from the cemetery.
If you're wandering around the city, and as we recommended way back at the start, as Zena recommended, you start at the top and meander your way down, there have been a couple of places where you will find telltale signs of the Jewish presence, including the use of flagstones from cemetery and gravestones with Hebrew writings. That's something to keep an eye out for as you're wandering around this beautiful city. It's one of those moments where teenage boys, and probably most other English speakers, would have a little giggle, because we're outside a restaurant called Moldee, and it is a very high-class restaurant.
I believe they mature the food longer than is necessary sometimes.
Okay, so I'm going to do the explanation, and I am going to give this restaurant a very, very warm review, and to say that most of all, above the food, which is excellent, is the staff, who are phenomenal. A young team bringing locally produced food with all sorts of twists on traditional dishes, and also some locally thought out dishes that reflect this region. As you know, mould, not spelt the way that Brits might spell, but M-O-L-D, of course, is something that you...
It's a small town in Wales.
It is as well. But it's something that you use to shape things, like a cake mould, a jelly mould, etc. And in addition, apparently, a Moldee is a customer in training, which, used as a verb, mold could mean to influence. The idea is we are going to bring to you the tastes that will win you over to what we dish up.
Oh, so a Moldee is like a trainee?
Yes.
That sort of thing. Oh, thank God.
Someone who's being moulded.
I thought the food was not going to be that good.
That's as far as this restaurant is concerned, and it's attached to the Tate Hotel.
And I have an absolutely stunning view here because I'm looking down the road to the sea.
And as we are recording, some incredible butter is being produced. This is a lime-infused butter with, if I remember rightly, a hint of truffle in it. Is that right?
Truffle and miso.
Can I ask you a couple of questions? Yes. What's your name?
My name is Dimitris.
What's your job here?
I'm the head waiter of the restaurant. I'm the one that makes sure the guests have the best experience possible.
So we've just explained to our listeners the word Moldee, but from your perspective, what does it mean to give a customer the perfect experience?
First, and I believe the most difficult part, is to explain the philosophy of our chefs, what they are trying to do in the city, because I believe it's one of the most different and diverse restaurants in the city at the moment. We try a lot. The menu is very flexible. We change it every day, almost, very frequently at least. It depends on the seasonal and available products.
Thank you very much indeed.
We are coming to the end of our wonderful time in Thessaloniki. How was it for you?
The salad here is great.
And the trip?
You already know what I'm going to say. I'd seen a couple of videos done by influencers, not influencers, sorry.
He
and
sniffs.
To be honest, the way they presented the city was very disappointing. They talked about the White Tower. They make a fuss of circling up the White Tower and apparently filming there when they might not really have permission to be filming there. But that was basically it. It was the water and that. We have spent 3 days, more or less, walking up and down the streets of this city. And to be honest, I've fallen in love. And we have to stop for a second because our cocktails have arrived.
Americano.
The Americano is for me and...
Basil mash.
So the basil mash will be for my colleague Mark over there. Thank you so much.
It's a wonderful, minty green colour, and yours is a really bright red.
Yes.
We just need yellow, and we can do traffic lights. The butter.
I think this place is amazing. It's a 20th century city, in part because of the fire back in 1917 that led to the reconstruction. So what you have is this beautiful central downtown area with narrow streets, with gorgeous trees. There's a wonderful boardwalk or promenade along the water. It just feels beautifully modern, almost like a nicer version of Barcelona in some respects. And then you've got the classic stuff.
We have been here for a very long weekend. Our previous podcast, we spoke about the Jewish history here, the good times, and the fact that this was actually the only Jewish majority city in Europe, and then obviously the bad times, the Shoah, the fact that 97% of the community here were killed by the Nazis. It's been incredibly educational, and modern Thessaloniki has been... It feels a bit like the French Riviera, that promenade there, but at the same time it feels a bit like Akko with the history, and as we've said, a little bit like Haifa, the port city. It's kind of a cross between. So to our east, if I do my geography correct, is Israel, to our west is France, and this sits perfectly in the middle, a wonderful fusion.
What I would say, and I usually endorse the cities that we come to, but if you're looking for something that you didn't expect and you want to spend a long weekend or even a week's vacation, if you take in the beaches around and the beautiful nature reserves, the forest that we didn't get to, I would say this is a very reasonably priced place. If you're headed to Israel or from Israel, you can get here very easily. The people are so warm, so friendly. It's got the shopping, it's got the cafes. I think it is absolutely fabulous.
Would you come back?
Yes.
Would you buy an apartment here?
It is the sort of place that if you were thinking about investing somewhere overseas for very reasonable costs and you want that Riviera feel without having to pay what you would pay in northern Italy, in France, absolutely.
Should we say thank you to a few people?
That's normally your job.
I will do my best to get everybody's names right and not mispronounce them. To Maria and Lina from the Thessaloniki Tourism Organization, to Nancy at the Greek National Tourism Organization, to Evgenia and all of the team at the Tate Hotel, and the wonderful Moldee restaurant that's Moldee.
Our tour guides, who have been phenomenal.
Yes, and particularly for this podcast in Thessaloniki, to Zina, who has spent the day with us and tolerated us while we've just been as annoying as we normally are.
Absolutely terrific as a tour guide. That's it, but of course there's the quiz question.
Something to do with sportswear.
Yeah, thee or me?
Thee.
Okay, so the name of the city is Thessaloniki. If you were listening carefully, you will have heard that the first part of that name refers to the wife of the king of this place back in, I think it was the 3rd century BC. She was the half-sister of Alexander the Great. The second half of it is Niki, or Nike, or Nika, or Nika. What does that mean?
That is the world's longest question.
But it needed explaining. The answer
is a swoosh Nike.
Yes, it is a swoosh Nike, or as Winston Churchill would have done, giving you 2 fingers, the sign for victory.
Ah, there you go.
Nike is victory, so it means the victory of Thessala.
So Puma is runners-up.
You mentioned Adidas at the start, so we've got them all in there.
And there are many other great sports brands out there. If you've enjoyed our podcast in Thessaloniki, give us a 5-star review on your podcast provider. You can find us in the Jerusalem Post at jpost.com. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts. Oh no, there is no more Google Podcasts.
It's YouTube.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts and any other good podcast provider.
Mail us.
markdavidpod@gmail.com. Our social media handle is markdavidpod. On Instagram, we're also there as Mark and David's Travels, as we are at Facebook. You'll find us somehow. Just put 2 idiots abroad and you'll get there.
Oh, dearie me. Until the next time, we wish you safe travels and really look after yourselves, be well, and stay in touch.
Yasu,
as they say in Thessaloniki.